Well, one of the things we're going to be doing is we're going to have featured fellows from this institute, and we're going to have two sessions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and we're going to hear from four fellows in each doing 5 minutes, these wonderful lightning talks. And some of you will know that this Institute's Fellows is the flagship fellowship program, which is intended to build capacity and capability for improvement research. And we're going to be hearing from them and also speakers funded through the precursor to this scheme, the Improvement Science Scheme funded by the Health Foundation. And this is the first, as I said, of our two sets. And a common theme is uncertainty. And our first fellow, Julia Clark, a PhD student from the Department of Health Sciences in Leicester, has been considering what happens when a pregnant woman notices fewer fetal movements. Julia.
My name is Julia Clark. I am a midwife, and today I'm presenting a short summary of my PhD research, which explores variation in care following women's reports of altered fetal movement. My analysis is informed by the sociology of diagnosis. So, altered fetal movement and stillbirth are linked to a common pathology, placental insufficiency. Poorly managed episodes of altered fetal movement have been highlighted as an important contributor to avoidable stillbirth. NHS England's Saving Babies' Lives Care Bundle includes raising awareness of reduced fetal movement as one key intervention to tackle stillbirth and early neonatal death. However, concerns have been raised that encouraging awareness of fetal movement might in fact be harmful on the grounds that it has not been proven to reduce stillbirth and has been associated with a higher number of inductions, caesarean sections, post-neonatal deaths, and prolonged admissions to the neonatal unit. In order to learn about what influences care following reports of altered fetal movement, I undertook a focused ethnographic study across 2 UK maternity units, including over 200 hours of observation and semi-structured and informal interviews with midwives and obstetricians. Over 2 4-week periods, I observed 52 fetal movement care episodes involving 30 maternity clinicians and 40 pregnant women. Field notes, interview transcripts, maternity notes, clinical guidelines, and other relevant documents were then analysed to identify key themes. Based on my analysis, most clinicians thought altered fetal movement was often an unreliable symptom, with many mothers too busy, distracted, or anxious to monitor their baby's movements well. Ultrasound scans and CTG monitoring were valued for their potential to generate objective evidence of fetal health, but clinicians understood that these tests could only ever provide temporary reassurance and that they could never disprove a mother's experience of altered fetal movement. A key challenge for obstetricians was making decisions about induction of labour where there was no objective evidence of fetal compromise. On the one hand, the unclear cost of induction, especially in the early term period, made some obstetricians reluctant to prescribe this intervention on the grounds of perceived altered fetal movement alone. On the other, clinicians were keenly aware of the risk of stillbirth, and some indicated that action in the form of induction was often safer than waiting, perhaps for the baby, and certainly for the clinician. In one interview, an experienced obstetrician rationalized that induction will, quote, absolutely reduce stillbirths because they're not going to be pregnant anymore. But they continued, it's at what cost? And actually, it's very difficult. I find it very, very challenging to say, well, this is absolutely the right indication, or this is absolutely the right intervention to be making for this indication. In my research, I have identified 2 important and mutually reinforcing areas of controversy. 1, the perceived unreliability of the symptom, and 2, the uncertain cost of the treatment. Mildred Blackster highlights the instrumental nature of diagnosis, arguing that one of its key functions is to prescribe action. Therefore, diagnostic categories and processes are likely to be influenced by the availability of a course of action that is acceptable to the clinician. This instrumental dimension of diagnosis is clearly relevant to my own research, where so often clinicians' concerns about altered fetal movement centered on the unclear risks of the treatment. Induction of labour comes at the very end of the altered fetal movement care pathway, and so far has received relatively little mention in the relevant guidelines. However, its influence runs throughout the diagnostic process. Therefore, and in conclusion, I would propose that any attempts to improve practice relating to altered fetal movement would benefit from taking into account how clinicians and pregnant people understand and value induction of labour. For concerns relating to this diagnostic endpoint seem to influence much of what comes before.